Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Kickabout with me, Chris, and once again we have Dan and Fran with us. Say hi, boys and girls.
Hi.
So another week passes, another ridiculous week of Premier League football has been and gone. I should say that we were planning on trying to give some airtime to some of the teams we haven't talked about, and then shit just went crazy yesterday. So we'll obviously get into that. Thankfully, there's no VAR to talk about this week.
Yay.
Maybe. Well, okay, handball then. Handball, there's not.
Less than last week.
I agree.
So we are also going to record a second episode this week. My goodness, what we're going big time. We are. This is
We've made
the only
it.
way is up. We're going to do a second episode this week with transfer deadline day finishing tonight. It felt a bit rubbish that we were recording before that had finished and therefore not really having the opportunity to kind of talk about all of the 4,001 deals that have already happened today. So we're going to talk about all things transfers on probably Wednesday with the idea to release it maybe Thursday morning. Gives us a chance to kind of digest everything that's happened. And also we'll look to maybe give a rating to each team. We will go through every team as well in this sort of one-off special on Wednesday. So let's get into it then. So Dan, what's your stat this week?
Right, so I'm going to read this as I have written it to make it a bit easier for myself. So Jack Grealish bagged himself 2 goals and 3 assists against Liverpool yesterday. He becomes only the second Aston Villa player to get 3 assists in a single Premier League game. The first player to do so did it against Burnley in February 2010. But who was that player?
10 years ago.
And I'll give you a little hint, and everyone else a little hint. He is still playing in the Premier League to this day.
I think I know who it is.
Yeah, I thought that might.
That's just giving it away, I think. Right, okay, well, as usual, we'll reveal the answer to that later on. So let's get diving in. So we'll start... We're probably the only place we can start, really, with Aston Villa against Liverpool. I mean, I asked for a show of hands last week about who saw the Leicester-Man City result coming. I mean, I would do the same this week, but I feel like it's going to be the same answer. I mean, I think this is probably... We've had some crazy results and crazy scorelines since we've been playing again in lockdown and last season as well. This has got to be the most incredible one so far, isn't it?
Yeah. I think even, especially, I know we'll get into it in a minute, but even more so following the game that had literally just happened before it.
Yeah.
You thought that was going to be the big story.
And then Aston Villa went, hold my beer. I mean, interesting lineup from Villa. Obviously, Barkley thrown straight in. Maybe not interesting is the wrong word, but, good to see the Barkley going straight in. And the combination play between him, Watkins and Grealish... That could be something exciting for Villa fans.
Really nice.
Very good signing, Barkley. I mean, I didn't see that one coming. I could have seen him going to like a Southampton or something like that.
I didn't see him leaving at all. I thought he was still liked enough by Lampard that he'd be a good squad player there. But maybe, with people like Ziyech yet to come back in the team.
Brought in a lot of players.
He still seems to like playing Jorginho. So maybe it was Barkley that said, you know what, I want to go and get more first team football.
How old is he now?
Mid-20s.
It's not the quiz yet, is it?
Well.
I'd say about my 25, 26.
Yeah, he's one of those players who feels like he's been around for a long time because he burst onto the scene quite young at Everton, didn't he? So it's a Mika Richards conversation again. Where's Rory Keane? But yeah, I mean, it'd be very easy to criticise Liverpool, and we will. But I suppose we should take our hat off and praise Aston Villa first and foremost because they were brilliant.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
We've got 2 goals from Grealish and 3 assists. Ollie Watkins with his first Premier League goals ever. The perfect hat-trick as well.
Say the perfect hat-trick.
I mean, obviously the defending for Liverpool was one thing. Obviously the first goal they conceded was a real bad error from Adrian. But defensively, these... I wouldn't say this result has been coming, but the danger signs have been there for Liverpool.
They've looked a bit rocky, haven't they, for a few weeks, I think.
I think it's the same as Man City. I think teams are slightly starting to suss them a little bit because they play really attacking football and they play very high lines. I think teams are starting to play a bit more direct against them. And that is, as you can see with Villa, I mean, they were playing that direct football, like straight over the top, players running in behind. and it was working. And if it's not broken, don't fix it.
There was a stat that was shown on, it was probably Match of the Day, where they were showing about the number of times that Liverpool have caught offensive teams offside by playing that high line. Was this just a case of just one team getting it right every single time? Because they got in behind so often. I mean, it could have been double figures, and that's not an exaggeration.
Well, I mean, Ollie Watkins come off disappointed at the end. He didn't get more.
You look fuming.
You get a hat-trick, your first ever goals in the Premier League, perfect hat-trick against the champions, and he's come off disappointed. But yeah, I mean, they were just sort of basic errors. Did you know what they struck me as... Did you ever play the old game? You're probably too young, but did you ever play the old PC game Lemmings?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have a little conversation to myself with the viewers about this one. So basically, it was a really old PC game, and the idea was you had all these little weird lemming creatures, and you had to get them to a certain part of the map by building stuff for them. And the lemmings would just continue walking until they either got to the end or they fell off the cliff and died.
Right.
And to me, it just looked like Liverpool were doing that. It was almost like something needed to happen to put them on a different course, but nobody ever did. They didn't really change the shape. I know that I can't even remember if Klopp made any changes at half time or not. But it just felt like they were just sleepwalking to that result. It almost like they were powerless to do anything about it.
Sort of went in with one tactic in mind and just kept trying it until the 90th minute.
They didn't really change at all, did they? Like even the squad on the pitch, they didn't move about.
But I think it shows what missing your key players. Would the result have been the same with Alisson and Mane in that squad? You would certainly argue the first one doesn't happen. If that one doesn't happen, were the next couple after that a consequence of that first one? I mean, who knows? You're never really going to know that. Would Mane have made much of a difference? I wouldn't have actually said going forward Liverpool were that bad. No. But I think that by the time Villa got the third and the fourth goal, it was almost like Liverpool were resigned to the fact that they were going to get beaten.
Yeah, they gave up. I think they completely gave up.
Every time Villa were on the attack, you sort of thought they could actually score it.
Yeah. And as I said, Liverpool were dreadful. Ross Barkley could have had a couple. He did get a goal in the environment, obviously quite a big deflection. Yeah. But he played really well. He could have had two in the first half. And people just getting in between Gomez and Van Dijk. Is Gomez a worry? Because he's not really been firing. I know Van Dijk has been a bit hit and miss as well. But should Liverpool fans be thinking, do we need another centre-back, a real strong Van Dijk partner?
I think they've struggled to find Van Dijk a real partner. A bit like City, they've got, maybe not now, they've just signed Diaz, but they've been looking for that sort of centre-back to go with Laporte. Obviously Van Dijk's starting every single time. But you've got like Matip. I don't know if is Lovren still there.
As far as I know, he's gone out on loan or he's been sold to a Turkish side, I think.
And then Joe Gomez. I don't know. He makes a lot of mistakes. I think that's the problem with.
He reminds me a little bit of Lindelof. That he just doesn't get tight enough to his man. I mean, that first goal, for example, I think Gomez could have done an awful lot more to help prevent that. I appreciate the error was made by Adrian, but if you look at when I can't remember who it was who actually picked up on the ball, whether it was Trezeguet, whether it was Grealish, but he was inside the 18-yard box, albeit a bit out wide and quite fairly close to the goal line. But Gomez just never got tight enough, and he allowed him to turn and pick the pass. If he gets tight, he doesn't allow him to turn, and he faces him the other way, and that goal probably doesn't happen because then Liverpool defenders come back. And he did that on a few occasions. And the deflected goals. All right, granted they're very lucky, but you could also argue that they're not lucky because Liverpool didn't really get tight enough in the first place. They sort of dangled a leg, turned their back on the shot. If you really go at it, like Leeds did against Man City on a couple of occasions, you get a much clearer block in. You take the sting out of the shot, goes wide, goes through the keeper, whatever. Yeah. I think Liverpool need to sort themselves out a bit. This result hasn't been coming. 7-2 is a ridiculous result, but the loss has been coming, I think. Fair play to Villa. They're 100% this season. They looked brilliant. Dean Smith has got the makings of a really exciting side there. They look really good at the back as well, I felt. I think if you're a Villa fan, you're loving life right now, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, especially as they were, on deadline day for the Premier League, they were like escaping relegation.
Well, the point they scraped against West Ham last game of last season kept them in the league. And now they're second with a 100% record.
And they've just beaten the Premier League.
Yeah. And they've made some good signings this season, this window. So yeah,
One to watch.
I think Barkley could well be one of the best signings of the summer. I think he adds so much to that Villa team. I think it's a perfect fit for him. I really do.
Even Watkins. I mean, that the main thing they were lacking last year was goals, because they just didn't really have a striker.
They had Wesley, didn't they?
Yeah,
he looked the part, but never really quite scored the goals.
That's Samata. Was that his name?
I think
yeah, and he wasn't scoring goals either. And Grealish can't do it all on his own, especially playing out on the wing. So I think him, Ollie Watkins and Barkley could be quite a good trio to watch.
Yeah, and defensively Tyrone Mings looks really good. Should he be more seriously considered as a regular starter for England? I mean, if I say to you right now, who's your two England centre-halves, assuming they play four across the back? Maguire's going to be one.
Well,
he shouldn't be, but he's going to be, even though he shouldn't be.
Yeah, he'd be there. Yeah, just through lack of options, really. But I mean, who else? Joe Gomez has been playing next to him more recently, and to be honest, I wouldn't want either of those two at centre back.
No,
especially with Pickford behind. That's literally a calamity.
Oh goodness me! Yeah, Joe Gomez, Harry Maguire, and Jordan Pickford. We've got 2 games against Belgium. Eden Hazard is going to be licking his lips.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I literally have no idea who I would have as my centre backs. Michael Keane, Everton doing well.
Yeah. But the only reason I bring that up is that I know Villa have played 1 game less than everybody else, but they do have the best defensive record in the league at the moment.
Yeah.
Granted, they've still got a game in hand over most teams, but unless they lose that unless they concede 2 or 3 goals in that game, they're still going to have the best defensive record.
Well, I mean, players should be picked on form, I think, for the international team. So
not
why not?
What team they play.
No, I think it should be on form. Well, I mean, if Villa are performing like that in the Premier League above the likes of Man City, Liverpool, United, then that's even better.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been an advocate of that, of picking players on form, but there is a line though. You do have to be careful.
You can't completely change the 11.
Well, not only that, but it's people or players do have bursts of form where they suddenly play well for 10 games. Just because they've done that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good enough to play at that level for 2-3 seasons and then do it on an international stage. So you do have to be a little bit careful
of course,
with that sort of thing. When I was making the notes for this show today, I was actually going to put in there, are Man City in danger of falling behind Liverpool like they did last season? I had to hastily delete that comment after watching this game. So
interest in Liverpool's next fixture as well, Everton.
Oh yeah, that's a tasty one.
Do we know who Man City?
Not off the top of my head.
No, I'm not sure either. Obviously, we've got the international break now, where 1 or 2 teams, including Liverpool, desperately need that break.
But do you think that will ruin some of the momentum at some teams?
Some teams probably can't wait for the international break, and then some teams probably wish it wasn't coming up.
Yeah.
Especially with Everton. Everton would be one of those teams that probably wish they could play. Although I don't know, after getting thumped by Villa, Liverpool might, be really up for their next game. So it can go either way. Yeah,
City have done that. They've always been one of these teams, especially last season, where they'd lose 1 game and whoever had them next week would be like, fuck, we're going to get smashed here. And inevitably they did.
Yeah.
Which was great for us to watch, but from a City point of view.
But City haven't been like that this year, have they?
They looked like they were going to be against. We'll obviously get onto the Man City Leeds game later, but they did look like they were going to do that, and then Leeds obviously got themselves back in the game. So fantastic for Villa. Definitely a team to look out for this year. I'm really keen to see Ollie Watkins and see whether that was a flash in the pan or whether he can score those sorts of goals regularly for Villa. So,
I also think just good for the Premier League that Liverpool lost. It just makes it a lot more interesting.
Or more that another team is sort of. I think that's why I like. I mean, why obviously the Premier League is the best league in the world, because you've got your Aston Villas beating your Liverpools.
Yeah,
you don't really get that.
When was the last time we saw Barcelona and Real Madrid lose 7-2 to effectively a lower mid-table team on last season's form?
To Tenerife.
Yeah, exactly. So it's. I know what you mean. I think if we see these kind of crazy results. I mean, God knows what. I mean, our predictions at the start of the season could be ridiculous come the end of the season.
But I don't understand. It seems I mean, how long was the break between last season and this season? Like 3 weeks?
No, it's a bit longer than that. But I know what you mean. It wasn't as long as it would usually be.
But just every team just seems to have forgotten how to defend within that month or whatever it was. The amount of goals that have been shipped in.
I was actually going to ask this later, but I'll ask it now since we're kind of on topic. Do you think the lack of fans is actually doing this? Do you think the lack of intensity in the atmosphere? Do you think the players are getting away with it? If that's the right way of saying it,
could be.
You know, if for example, if you look at the Chelsea game or Man United game, for example, if there was a full house at Old Trafford, do they lose 6-1 to Spurs yesterday?
Probably. Well, they'd get a lot of stick after it rather than what they did. But I feel like you could be right. But at the same time, like, how many games were there at the end of last season? There weren't any like 7-0s and 7-2s. True.
Also, that happened with fans and they'd all walked out.
Oh, yeah. That's true. There wouldn't have been any fans left at the end of the game anyway. I mean, you know, it would be amazing, some of these games, you know, Leeds being back in the Premier League for the first time in 16 years. This result for Aston Villa.
That would be
Everton on the streak that they are right now. Yeah. If they beat Liverpool in the next game, it's the first time they've won a derby for, I think it's like 10 years or something stupid. Fans are missing out on a lot right now. But part of me does think that I'm not sure some of these results happen if there are fans. And I think players are being so much more expressive because the only people they can hear criticising them is their manager. They don't have 45,000 people telling him he's a twat and what the hell is he doing on a football pitch.
Maybe it's the fake crowd noises spurring them on to score more.
They don't hear that though, do they?
No,
I think it's only us at home.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I'd love it if they did. Right, let's move on. Let's move on to the other crazy game. Manchester United against Tottenham.
Great game.
I think we should call this the kickabout derby. Because it's, you know, there'll be West Ham games against Spurs, Man United, but since you guys, you know, you're living with each other, I think that's the full kickabout derby. How was it for you, Dan?
Well, I think you should start with Spurs, and because they played really well. Okay. And we'll start with Spurs and talk about how
you're building up to it.
And I'm just going to simmer.
You need a run up. So Fran, as a Spurs fan,
an impartial Spurs fan, great game. I mean, I think obviously you've got to talk about Harry Kane and Son, haven't you? They were sort of the two key players, I think, up front. Although I think everyone had a very good game.
Firstly, I was quite surprised that Son was playing. I must admit, I thought he was injured.
I didn't think he would be back. To me.
So I was very surprised when I saw his name in the starting lineup. The other player that deserves some credit, I think, is Højbjerg.
Yeah. Oh, he had a cracking game.
Because I'll hold my hands up. I thought he was and I called it a safe signing earlier on in our episodes. But he was brilliant. He really dominated that midfield. The stats were
mental for him.
Yeah, he was top of every stat that they sort of brought up on Match of the Day.
That being said, Manchester United obviously did afford him an awful lot of space, so he was given the freedom of Old Trafford's midfield to really dictate that game. But, you know, you've still got to do it. You've still got to pick those passes. You've still got to win those balls. And despite that, he didn't really have any pressure on him a lot of the time, he still played at the right intensity, and that reflected in the scoreline.
Yeah, for sure. I know we'll get to it, but I would say that Lamela should have gone off.
I was going to say, I hope he gets a gold medal for that dive.
Martial
I heard he's been called up to the Argentinian Olympic team for next year.
Yeah, Martial went, Lamela should have gone. 100%.
Yeah, we will get onto that. Just before that, I just want to ask you a quick question about Mourinho. Now, we've spoken about him before. I know you're not a big fan, and I know in fact, none of us are particularly big fans of Mourinho. Does he deserve a little bit of credit? Because I've watched Spurs in the last couple of games now. The last 3 away games that Spurs have had, I think I've got it written down here somewhere. They've obviously got 6 yesterday.
Yeah.
They got 7 away in midweek. Granted, it was a lower league European team. They got 5 away at Southampton, sorry.
Yeah.
Earlier on in the season in their last away game. So Mourinho has always had this aura about him that he would sit players behind the ball and try and catch them on the break. If it yields those sorts of goals and the sort of performances we saw at the weekend, does he deserve a little bit of credit, do we think? Or
it's his second season, isn't it? It's that Mourinho second season syndrome. He always does amazing in his second season at a club.
So you're saying they're winning a trophy this year?
I called it in the first episode. I guarantee you Spurs will win a trophy. It won't be the Premier League and it won't be the Champions League, but either the League Cup or the FA Cup, Spurs will win one of those two.
Oh, that's a big claim.
Maybe Mourinho. I think it's becoming a bit more of an attacking team under him.
He's got a lot of attack. Well, Pochettino brought in a lot of attacking players.
Yeah. So are you trying to say that Mourinho's kind of working with what he's got?
Well,
And it's-
Mourinho's a very defensive manager. He likes to build from the back. So whenever he goes to a team, he's usually bringing in centre backs or CDMs,
Yeah.
and then working with whatever he's got.
and then eventually works his way up the pitch.
But I think this is a different thing for him because he's got like.
Well, he's already got probably the two best. Well, maybe. Well, I don't know whether
two of the best.
Yeah, I mean Harry Kane you would class as
we can
one
say
of the best, if not the best striker. Son Heung-min is my favourite player. Well, he was before.
Most underrated player in the Premier League.
Oh, that I love.
Yeah, and Lucas Moura isn't. He's not half bad, is he?
No.
So.
No, he's banging.
So we've talked about Spurs briefly. I think it's worth pointing out actually that Spurs have had an extremely busy period of games.
Yeah.
A lot of their players are international players who are now going to be going away and playing multiple games. I know Mourinho is very concerned about the prospect of people like Harry Kane playing 3 games for England and then coming back and playing a few more games. The next game, there's another kickabout derby coming up because it's Spurs against West Ham next in the Premier League, and then you've got Burnley and Brighton. So if Spurs pick up, I mean, there's every chance if the way they're playing at the moment, you get 9 points from those 3 games. Yeah. All of a sudden, Spurs are looking really like a team that can push for those Champions League places and maybe even higher if Liverpool, Man City keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, you've got a very strong squad when you look at their squad. And now they don't have to do these European qualifiers. So now that it's just the Champions League, they're pretty much on the same sort of setting as everyone else now. They're not going to be playing 3 games a week. They're back to 2. Well, although the Cup's not even on until next year, is it now?
What, the FA Cup, you mean?
No, the League Cup. I think they've stopped.
We had our round of games now.
Yeah, I think that's it. So I think it's just 1 game a week now.
Right. My only worry with Spurs moving forward would just be consistency. They're very sporadic.
It'd just be interesting if Harry Kane gets injured again. I know they've bought in this striker because usually Harry Kane gets injured every single season and he's usually out for about a month, and that's when Spurs start to slip. When Harry Kane gets injured,
I think Son's got it in him to be the player to step up, and he has done it for Spurs in the past when Harry Kane's been injured. But I know what you mean. He's such a talisman for Spurs, is that they look to him not just for goals now. He's also laying on goals for other people on a regular basis. You see his
assists as well. He's knocking it from like nearly his own half. And I used to get watching him for England. It used to really annoy me because he was practically playing centre midfield. And it didn't work as well for England as it's working for Spurs because for some reason Son just knows exactly what Harry Kane's going to do.
Yeah.
And he is looking for that run in behind, and it works every single time.
I mean, if you look at the relationship those two have got, I mean, that's perfectly characterised by that second goal.
Yeah.
Where Harry Kane gets fouled. And
straight away he's looking up. Yeah. He's like telepathic.
He didn't need to know if someone was on the move. He knew he was on the move. He just needed to see where he was.
He literally looked up, spun and kicked it straight through.
Although I would say I think De Gea should do way better there.
Yeah.
Because if you look at where Son scores, and his last touch was so heavy, I was amazed that De Gea didn't come off his line.
Yeah.
And by the time he actually dinks over, he's almost in the 6-yard box.
But I mean, it's lazy defending as well. Like
incredibly.
Someone needs to stand in front of that ball.
Go on, Dan. We'll let him loose now. We talked about Spurs. Go on, Dan. Off you go.
3, 2, 1.
To start with, someone needs to stand in front of that ball. Like, that's kids' football.
Yeah.
And then secondly...
How long is this list, Dan?
Honestly.
How long is this list?
The second, for Son to just go sprinting through and all the United players are just stood there looking at each other. And I imagine they just stood there looking at the lines and waiting for him to put up the flag, hoping that he'd put up the flag. It's just childish and it's poor and it's lazy. And I was saying today to someone that I wanted to be as impartial and neutral as possible when it came to United games, but
are you struggling?
They're really not helping me out. Lose 3-1 to Palace and then just about in the 100th minute beat Brighton and then we lose 6-1 to Spurs. And it's just awful.
I mean, none of them had a good game, really, did they?
Everyone was just... I can't think of one player.
Maguire was shocking.
Harry Maguire was shocking. Luke Shaw should have had a red at the end.
Luke Shaw should have been off.
We'll get on to that chat later
in a bit. Pogba, he's just... I thought towards the end of last season, him linking up with Bruno, I thought he's finally found someone he can sort of bounce off of.
Yeah.
And I thought, first game, second game, he's still a bit unfit. But third game in, you can't still be unfit.
No.
You're supposed
not to that. If you start flagging in the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, fine. But
he's supposed to be a player that's in that world class bracket. He'd struggle to get into Aston Villa's team at the moment.
But
Yeah.
I think he's very much like he lives for the lifestyle stuff like that. And if he's not being spoken about and getting all this great accolade, I think he's just a bit like.
What annoyed me
I
was
think
when
you're right. I
I think it was the 6th goal, the penalty, where he just slid in. Like, it's one of those tackles where you're just like, don't slide.
It's such a
don't
nothing
slide.
challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and then he's trying to say that he's tucked his arms in. It doesn't matter if you've tucked your arms
your
in.
body in,
You've
have you?
gone
You've
straight
been
through
sliding
it.
for 15 metres before that. I mean, and Wan-Bissaka didn't cover himself in glory for that either,
No.
because he jumped in like a under 10 school kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you shout at kids, stand up, don't dive in. And
these are
awful.
Manchester United footballers. But then Pogba gets up and he's laughing about it.
Yeah, that, I must admit, I looked at that and I was like, oh, Dan's not going to be happy about that.
6-1.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing?
He's got such a bad attitude.
Can we talk about the first goal quickly? Because as calamities go, I can see you getting redder and redder in the face, Dan. You might have to move on.
I've got to try and remember each bloody goal because I was turning around half the time.
So the first goal, obviously, you get the stupid thing is.
Oh, the Harry Maguire header.
Yeah. So you go 1-0 up, 30 seconds into the game, you go 1-0 up. We've all heard the saying about scoring too early.
Yeah.
Man United took it to the next level because 6 minutes later they were 2-1 down. But the way in which that was defended, it just looked to me like nobody wanted to take responsibility.
Yeah.
Maguire, what he was doing with the first header, where he tried to cushion the header to Eric Bailly, was about 1.5 meters away from him. He didn't know anything about it, hit him in the face, comes back to Maguire. He then tries to head it, it hits Maguire again. Then he tries to head it back to De Gea, which was never going to work because there's too many players in and around him, and then decides to get in Luke Shaw's way. He was about to clear the ball. He pulls Luke Shaw to the ground, and Ndombele fires it in from about 3 yards.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, if ever I've seen a goal that was a vision of what was to come in that game, then that was it.
When we signed, I'll slightly digress. When we signed Maguire, everyone knows 80 million is way too much. But, you know.
We do now.
Yeah. But even at the time, everyone knew, 80 million. And
It was a panic buy, effectively, wasn't it?
But I thought, I was happy, 80 million out the way. I thought we're getting a commanding player. He's going to be winning headers from corners, both attacking and defensive. Like, he's going to get us goals from corners.
Yeah.
He's going to be a leader at the back, a commanding player. I feel like we've just got a rich man's Phil Jones. He's going to be...
Without the weird facial expressions.
Well, I mean, that's all he's missing. Like, there's going to be memes made out of him, and he's literally the next Phil Jones. But an 80 million Phil Jones. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, I do feel your pain because I was actually finding it quite tough to watch. And I'm like, I have no investment into Manchester United whatsoever. And I was looking at this, I was like, what must Manchester United fans think?
You know, Rashford tweeted afterwards, genuinely apologising to fans.
That apology, I think, came from his heart.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I've seen
I
before
think he
when we
meant it.
lose and you get we go again next week.
Yeah.
We'll put this behind us.
Somebody else did that. There was a Man United player. No, it was a Liverpool. No, it was Adrian. Adrian said that, sort of like said, we learn, we move, we will be better next time.
That rubbish.
That's one where you just text your agent saying, "Oh, can you just put a tweet out for me?"
Yeah.
But Rashford
Whereas
was like,
Rashford, I can actually see, he's done that himself. Maybe his agent probably did do it.
Well, he
or
is
whatever
United,
they are,
isn't he?
but
He's
yeah.
come from the youth club, so
Yeah.
that would have hurt. That would have hurt.
yeah, he said, like, I am a United fan.
And he was, to be honest, he was the only one for me that was actually trying to get us back into that game. And I could talk about so much in that game. Why he took Bruno Fernandes off and put Pogba left wing.
Stupid.
How Pogba stayed on that pitch for 90 minutes, I've got no idea.
If anything, I would have put Bruno on the wing and taken Pogba off. We signed Van der Beek and he's just not playing him. While Pogba continuously puts out a string of poor performances. I don't know what Van der Beek's got to do to get into the team.
Was it you that mentioned about Sanchez? About how within his first training session or two, apparently he texted his agent and said, "This is the worst mistake I've ever made," or something like that. I wondered, do you know what? There was a couple of times when the camera panned to Van der Beek on the sideline, and he had that look in his face to think, "What the freaking hell have I done?"
Well, I mean, we joke about like Sancho, but if you're Jadon Sancho sat at home and you're watching that, do you want to join United?
No. I don't see anyone want. The only reason you join United right now is for money.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And that means you're coming for the wrong reasons.
yeah. Well, this Cavani thing. I don't know if this is 100%, and I haven't fact checked it, but apparently his agent tweeted when he was leaving PSG saying if he was leaving because everyone was saying, "Oh, you're just going for the money, this, that, and the other." And he said, if Cavani was going for the money, he'd go to like Manchester United or Chelsea.
Yeah, because this was when he was going to go to Benfica or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah. And then I must admit, I thought he'd gone.
Well, I thought he'd gone.
So when all this news came up about him joining United, I was like, he's just gone to Benfica,
and
hasn't he?
Last minute, he's gone to United, and he literally just said if he was going for the money, it'd be at United.
I mean, obviously, we'll talk about that in more detail on the podcast on Wednesday. Gary Neville obviously was doing the commentary. Now I think that both him and Jamie Carragher, they do a pretty good job. Now they've been in the job a few years. They do a pretty good job of staying impartial, even though they're always given their own old clubs to commentate on, which I've always found quite an interesting one. Yeah. But I do must admit, I really like Gary Neville as a pundit. I think he's very good. Yeah. But you could just tell he was breaking inside watching that performance.
But I don't mind them. Even Jamie Carragher, I don't mind when Jamie Carragher gets all, talking about Liverpool. I think that's good. I don't think you should be able to turn off how passionate you are about your club.
You can't. Not for those two, certainly you can't.
Like Patrice Evra. Like he literally said, I'm going to have to ask Sky to either cancel my contract or stop putting me on United games. that is how I feel like watching these United games.
What was it? He said something like, I don't condone violence, but there are plenty of players who need a slap or something. He said. It was brilliant.
And then I saw Ed Woodward was obviously on. I said to you that Ed Woodward on his phone would be a meme. Yeah. And then it was a text from Patrice Evra saying, "You're getting a slap."
So with United, obviously have played one game less than most. They are currently 16th in the league, or around that mark. I don't know if it changed after the game. Yeah. They've conceded 11 goals in 3 games. They've only got 3 points. I mean, part of me feels a little bit sorry for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because it can't be nice being in that situation with the scrutiny he's under. But where do United go from here?
I don't see a philosophy. At the end of last season, I was starting to see us head in the right direction. And I thought this season, if they can make the right signings, I was never under any illusion that we were going to be challenging for the title this season. But I thought if we can cement that 3rd place and just sort of push Chelsea further below us, then that would be going in the right direction. But, when we were signing, he keeps going on about signing young players, young, hungry players, and then we go and get Cavani. Yeah. That is completely sending mixed messages. And it's another panic, but it's another Igalo.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Igalo, is he still there?
He's still there. Yeah. We've got him till January.
Oh, my God.
When are we getting to the red card? Because
we're getting to the red card now. We'll talk about the red card. It was 2-1 at the time. It was a bit of a surprise watching the game because you saw Lamela go down. You don't obviously see what happens. The red card comes out. Bit of confusion over does he go, does he not?
Because you never know which player it is that's actually got it.
And then obviously Martial walks off. There wasn't a huge amount of kickback from the other Man United players, which to me suggested, he's obviously done something and been an idiot. He waits at the side of the pitch, VAR does its thing and checks, and then he walks off. And then you watch the replays. I mean, what on earth is Lamela doing?
How is he still on the pitch?
Well, I'm not arguing like the Martial red card. You can't do that. It's stupid. I think Ollie even said that he's not going to argue because you just can't do that. But Lamela pretty much elbowed him in the face or in the throat. Yeah. And then Martial, it's like 2 fingers that he sort of rubs his throat.
And it's not even a proper wind-up slap, is it? It's just a little sort of it's almost like the old 1-inch punch from Bruce Lee days.
And for him to just hold his face and go down to the floor like that, it's just embarrassing.
He has been to Shakespearean pain acting classes, isn't he?
He should have gone up. Ollie did say, well done to Martial for
but you say well done, but what's it got him? It got him sent off, and Lamela stayed on the pitch.
He's got a respect from Ollie.
Well, yeah.
And that's worth a lot.
If anything, it's 2 yellow cards or 2 reds. I don't know how he could look at it. I can't remember who the ref was, but I don't know how.
Phil Mitchell, wasn't it?
It should be the same for
I don't know how he can look at it and think that he's made the right decision by just sending off one player.
No, and Lee Mason, in fairness to him, is a very good referee, in my opinion. He's one of the better ones in the Premier League. He obviously, I don't know whether he must have only seen the Martial part of that. So therefore, the next part of that decision as to whether Lamela stays on the pitch falls onto VAR.
Yeah.
Now, with VAR, the whole point about it being brought in was clear and obvious mistakes, mistaken identity, those sorts of things. If that isn't a clear and obvious mistake, or something that the referee may not have seen, this may not be any criticism on the referee, he just may not have seen it and may have just averted his gaze for a split second and only seen Martial's reaction. But how can VAR honestly look at that and say that what Lamela did was in any way, shape, or different? In any way, shape, or form different to what Martial had done?
And if anything, Lamela's worse because he did it first.
Yeah, he's the instigator.
Martial was a reaction to what Lamela did.
Yeah,
and Martial's the one that's got sent off.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a really strange place that we're in with football and these rules, because we're in a place where if you give someone a little slap around the face, a little tickle on the cheek, you get a red card, and then Luke Shaw can basically near on break Lucas Moura's legs in what can only be described as a FIFA challenge. You know, we've all been there 5-0 down on FIFA and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to foul everyone. I mean, there was no intent other than to take him out. And the velocity and intensity that he did it, he could have caused serious harm. And there is a rule in football, and I'm pretty certain of this, that says if you are endangering the safety of an opponent, it's a red card. I mean, surely it comes under violent conduct as a red card, if nothing else, or serious foul play. And yet that's only given as a yellow card. Yeah,
no arguments. I think it is a red card. I think Lee Mason, maybe because he didn't send Lamela off, is sort of evening it out by not sending Luke Shaw off. In my opinion, I think that's what he's done.
I hope it isn't, because you would hope referees are better than that. You would hope the referees don't work on the principle of two wrongs don't make a right, or two wrongs do make a right, or whatever, however you want to look at it. But it's a strange place to be. It didn't obviously have any effect on the result. I actually don't think that the result would have been too different had Martial stayed on the pitch.
No.
Tottenham were dominating at the time. I think they would have continued dominating. I don't think from the first whistle, we'll take out the Sanchez stupid penalty early doors. From that point on, Spurs looked in total control.
Yeah, I mean, even with 10 men, there was no fight. No. Like, you couldn't put it down to them being a man down, because there was just no fight at all.
There wasn't there? Like the 70th or 80th.
Oh yeah, when all the United players started trying to kick the crap out of the Spurs players.
A weird fire for like 5 minutes,
and
wasn't there?
Like Gary Neville said, you know, it's too little, too late.
Yeah.
Like,
you're not pulling the wool over our eyes with this one. You're not suddenly. Not everyone's not going to go, oh wow, yeah, they're really passionate, they're really trying. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Like, I mean, straight after the red card, when Bailly, you know, you've just passed it straight to the Spurs player, and then they're just sort of doing little triangles around our defence, and then Harry Kane passes it into an empty net.
Yeah,
straight after the red card.
To play out from the back in the way they did then, just after you've gone down to 10 men in the controversial way that it happened, was just suicidal. I mean, why you wouldn't just lump it long, regroup, get the ball up the pitch, and just reset? Absolutely madness. But anyway, we must move on.
Good.
We'll talk briefly before the break about Leeds against Man City. Whilst there wasn't as many goals, there was still just as much excitement in this game. Brilliant game of football. We sort of half mentioned earlier that Man City looked like they were going to run away with this game. First 15, 20 minutes, they were incredible. But Leeds, to their credit, they hung in there, and arguably they were unlucky not to get the 3 points in the end.
Yeah, I think people keep underestimating Leeds, don't they?
Are they the
people wrong?
Are they the real deal? Because they've now played Liverpool and Man City. They almost beat Liverpool. Arguably should have got something out of the game.
Yeah.
They've taken Man City all the way. I know they only just about scraped past Fulham. They beat who was the other team they beat? Help me out. Bollocks. I know they won 1-0.
Yeah. Sheffield.
Was it Sheffield United? And I know it was Bamford who scored, but anyway.
1-0, yeah, Sheffield United.
Yeah. So yeah, they've got plenty of points on the board. They're up in the upper reaches of the Premier League.
Research, isn't it?
I know. Nothing but professionalism in this podcast. So yeah, I think, can Leeds keep this up for the season? Are we seeing a genuine Europa League contender here, or are we jumping the gun?
I don't know. I don't want to say I can't see a reason why they can't keep it going. I mean, we know a Leeds fan, and he said that he was expecting to get smashed by City, and this was before the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a good thing being the underdog, because teams don't really expect much from you, especially City. I'm sure City went to Leeds expecting to win it, and they were fighting for their lives towards the end of that game.
Yeah.
You if you saw a winner coming, you almost thought it was going to be Leeds rather than Man City.
Yeah. Rodrigo made a real impact on the game. I'm pretty sure he didn't start. I think he came on.
Yeah.
Took his goal pretty well, although it was an instinctive finish in the box where it kind of dropped him after Ederson made a bit of an error coming out to punish the ball and punched it straight into Mendy's face. But yeah, I mean, I think Rodrigo, we've talked about Rodrigo a lot, both on this podcast and with the Leeds fan that you just mentioned, Joe. And we're not sold on Rodrigo.
I was going to say, I was saying before that game what a poor signing he was.
Well, in fairness,
Shows what I know.
In fairness to you, I don't think you said it was a poor signing. I think you just sort of more said that it wasn't a signing that was going to yield the level of goals that I think.
Yeah, especially for the amount of money they paid for it. It was like 30 million, wasn't it? Which is quite a lot of money for a championship club.
But obviously, Joe's argument is that it's going to be the amount of goals he's going to allow for other people because he's such an unselfish player. So if that is the case, then Leeds have got themselves a good signing there. I think he works really hard. Bielsa, I mean, I'll be honest, I've not tracked his career that much, but certainly in recent times, I don't think he's bought too many players that he hasn't probably done incredible amounts of research on to know that how he's going to fit into his team and his style. So Bamford, again, working hard. Thankfully, didn't get a goal for this bet that I've got going with Joe as well. So yeah, I think with Bielsa's team, can they just maintain it? You know, they do have a tendency to drop off towards the end of the season because of intensity.
That's the thing. They're a very hard-working team, and it's going to be hard to run your socks off for the entire season.
It was better last season, I believe, in the Championship. The season before, they definitely ran out of steam when they could have got promoted that season, but didn't. What might get them this season, it'll be interesting to tell as we go on, is the condensed nature of the fixtures that we currently have. Is that going to have an impact on this?
Yeah, but I mean, they've been playing in the Championship. There's a lot more games in the Championship than there is in the Premier League. So
That's true. They might actually be used to this.
Yeah, so they might be all right.
As far as Man City go, they're sort of struggling with that focal point strike. I did see today that Aguero is now back in training, but they do look like they've missed that focal point. I mean, Sterling does a good job. Obviously took his goal well. He did look very lively. Yeah. But I think without that Aguero or Jesus, they really don't look as dangerous going forward.
Need them back.
Yeah, no, they need that like focal point. I think every team needs that number 9.
Yeah.
And the Sterling's obviously a good goal scorer, but I think he much prefers himself to be cutting in off that wing.
But I think as a team they'll feel more confident.
Yeah.
Like, imagine playing knowing that you've got Aguero up front.
It's probably back to the same argument with Spurs and Harry Kane. If Harry Kane's in your team, you think, yes, we've got Harry Kane playing today. It must be the same with Aguero with the number of goals that he scored. Yeah. And I can't remember if it was under Guardiola management at Barcelona. With Barcelona played a similar system to how Man City are playing now, where they didn't really play with a striker. They had sort of a front three with nobody really playing as a out-and-out number 9. They had a couple of sort of 2 wingers and a false 9 or a cam, however you want to call it, and they kind of would just mix around and stuff. And it felt like that was what they were trying to do yesterday. But don't get me wrong, Sterling, I don't think De Bruyne was one of those 3. It was probably Sterling, Mahrez, and I think Bernardo Silva. I think he started. You know, don't get me wrong, all 3 of those class players, but they're not your Messi, Suarez, and Neymar.
No.
3 doing that. So, yeah, I think Man City will be praying for Aguero to come back, and then we'll sort of see. Pep will definitely be. It was actually, do you know what? It was really quite refreshing to see that. Do you know what? They dropped points. He must have been disappointed that they dropped points, but he looked so happy after the game. Yeah. He just like, do you know what? He looked like he really enjoyed himself.
I guess it's also because he was up against Bielsa.
Yeah, there is a bit of a love affair going on there, isn't there? Bless him. One quick mention for Ruben Diaz. Obviously last week's result against Leicester was really bad. We talked about how bad their defence were. Ruben Diaz with his debut looked really good. Do we think he's the answer? Do we think this is that one signing they've been waiting for to shore things up and make them a bit more solid?
Well, he's good on Football Manager. I can vouch for that.
Well, that's that, isn't it?
I think only time will tell. You know, how many players, centre-backs, have they signed now that they think will be the replacement and turns out not to be. Well, we've said how much they've spent on centre-backs and stuff. But yeah, he's that sort of commanding figure. It's more their injuries, because usually they're okay until they get a couple of injuries, and then because obviously Laporte got injured and he was out for most of the season, and then they were stuck with Fernandinho, and Fernandinho I thought actually did quite a good job at centre back.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, them. I think Laporte and Diaz as a centre back partnership, you probably can't go too wrong.
Yeah, Laporte's big. Well, Man City's big thing is keeping Laporte fit.
Yeah,
he's had a lot of niggling injuries since he's come in. Nathan Ake, though, in fairness to him, was one of the few defenders that came out with any kind of real credit last weekend.
Yeah.
So
big fan of Nathan Ake.
Yeah, I think he's good. He'll be a good squad player for them.
Yeah, I think he probably knows that he's going to get plenty of first team football this season because he knows that Laporte's going to get injured.
Yeah.
He was deployed as a left back actually at the weekend for when he came on as a sub. So yeah, I think Man City will be pretty happy with Ruben Diaz. They'll be even more happy to see what happened to Liverpool.
Yeah.
So the Premier League is hotting up nicely. Before we go to a break, I just wanted to talk about something that went on in Italy over the weekend. I think we talked about it on our WhatsApp group. So Juventus and Napoli. So the story was these two were supposed to have a game. Juventus turned up to the game as they would, as per normal. Napoli, however, did not turn up to the game because the week before they played Genoa and they had a couple of coronavirus positive tests, but the game went ahead as you would sort of expect with only a couple. In the days afterwards, I think it was 16 players of Genoa's went down with COVID-19. And under local instructions, Napoli's players were told they had to self-isolate, which meant they couldn't travel to Turin to play Juventus. So now we've got this crazy situation where we're going to have Juventus. This is a bit like a Saturday afternoon for us, where you can't get a team out and the other team gets a 3-0.
So did they get the forfeit?
I think I've not looked today. Stupid. I saw the link in my notes and I thought, fuck, I forgot to look. I forgot to look to see what the latest is. The last I saw was that the Italian FA have said if you've got 13 players, you have to travel and play the game.
Right.
Which I think Napoli did have 13 players, because I don't think actually too many of them, if any, that I saw had actually tested positive for coronavirus. But obviously that's not the point. You got to, if you come into contact with someone, you still got to self-isolate.
Yeah.
So I highly suspect Juventus will be claiming the points. Not that they need to do, because they're probably going to win the league anyway. But obviously Napoli are saying, hang on a minute, we're following all these guidelines and following all these rules, and you're just going to give a 3-0 to somebody else. So I suspect this one is going to rumble on and
it's
on.
It's a bit like the teams that got relegated without finishing the season, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you're interested to read a bit more about that, do a Google search. It's doing the rounds on Twitter. I think it's on the BBC Sport website as well, last time I checked. We're going to head to a break. After the break, we're going to talk about Leicester's unbeaten run coming to an end. Everton's unbeaten run continues. And we'll have round 3 of our quiz. See you in a minute. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. In this part of the show, we're now going to talk a little bit more about Premier League before we get on to the round 3 of our quiz. We're going to start with Leicester's unbeaten run coming to the end at the hands of the mighty Hammers. I mean, I don't know if there's any more humble pie that I can eat, but I've had a fair helping of it already. David Moyes is now never allowed to come back from working from home.
I said that, didn't I?
We were saying that earlier. It's going to have to stay at home for the rest of the season.
Keep him away.
I mean, I think even though people who know me and know that I do beat on West Ham a lot, I think even the most sympathetic West Ham fan would have looked at our fixture and think, God, that's tough. And then to lose 2-0 against Newcastle, which arguably out of those opening fixtures was our easiest one, to lose 2-0 and the way in which we did was ringing alarm bells. But all credit where credit is due here. We were absolutely incredible against Leicester at the weekend. Did you watch the game? What do you think?
Yeah, we watched it.
Yeah.
I mean, your front three are sort of looking like a Salah Firmino man.
I love it.
That Bowen's looking good.
Yeah, 3 goals in 2 games from Jared Bowen. He obviously did get a lot of goals in the Championship for Hull.
Yeah.
He was touted as, at the time, being one of the best players in the Championship when we got him in January.
Front three.
And Fornals is deceptively quick.
Yeah.
Bowen is the same. Antonio,
He's a big guy, isn't he? But he's
very
super
physical,
quick.
isn't he?
absolute brute.
Good number
Yeah.
9.
I mean, they did a bit on him on Match of Day 2, and they were sort of saying there is no Premier League centre back right now that would look at Antonio and think,
Look at him.
think
No one wants to play.
no one wants to play it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But in terms of the actual game, I mean, it wasn't just. I mean, I was out for lunch with some friends, so I didn't actually get to see it live. I watched the rerun. And I didn't realise at the time that just how dominating West Ham's performance was. Leicester didn't have a shot on target in the entire game.
Yeah. The only time they did, they scored, and then it was ruled out for offside.
It was it was incredibly tight, that offside goal.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I was so worried about this game, more from the point of view that I'd left Vardy on my bench for my fantasy league team by accident and left Antonio in the starting lineup. In hindsight, masterstroke, genius.
Yeah.
I took Callum Wilson out and put Vardy in. So
Good man, well played. Well played.
He hasn't spoken about it much, so it's fine.
Just every week I make a stupid decision. But anyway.
I mean, with the transfer window coming to a close, we've got, an hour and 3/4 left at the time of recording. It looks almost impossible now for Declan Rice to leave for Chelsea. Another amazing performance from him. Is it
Nearly a goal as well.
nearly a goal? Yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what Johnny Evans was doing.
just
literally, go on then, off you go. Go and have a shot. Do we think that? What does Declan Rice need to do? Because there's still an awful lot of people out there who think that he's actually not very good and that he shouldn't be playing for England. He has been doing the job now for, as a West Ham fan watching week in, week out, I can absolutely say with 100% accuracy that he is an incredibly good player. He's very good on the ball. He protects the back four immensely well. He gets around the pitch. He's got an incredible engine, but he doesn't seem to do it on the England stage just yet.
Well, it's a step up, isn't it? There is a big difference, I think, between international football and league football.
There's different players that you're playing with, because obviously when you're playing every week at your club, you gel with players, you know exactly what each other is going to do. But when you go and play 2 games for, I don't know, when was the last game? Like 2 months ago?
That was it, about a month ago.
It's completely different players. It's a different team. Some players just don't. Some players are better internationally than they are for their club. And some players are just a lot better for their club than they are ever on the international stage.
Do you think it doesn't help? I mean, not just for Rice as well. I'm, thinking about other players in the England squad now as well. Is that Gareth Southgate, for me, doesn't really know what his best midfield is. And so, you look like, what's his face? Phillips from Leeds, came in last time.
Calvin Phillips,
out of nowhere, comes in, starts the game alongside Declan Rice. Those two have never played with each other before. And as England fans, it's weird that we see them as professional footballers. We see them getting paid the money they do, which is always the argument that's thrown in. And we just expect them to go into an England team and immediately click and immediately know how each other's going to play. And as you say, it just doesn't work like that.
No. I mean, I think the best case for England-wise is probably Wayne Rooney. He never really hit it off. That's actually a complete lie because he's England's top goal scorer.
But I know what you mean, though.
He was never as good for England, I don't think, as he was for United.
No, he had obviously.
I'm thinking of the actual, like the World Cup.
Yeah, the major tournaments.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, you could throw that argument that England as a team have underperformed at major tournaments.
Yeah.
The last World Cup obviously was brilliant. It was amazing to watch. But if you look at the run, we lost 3 games in that World Cup, 2 against the same side. We did have a very favourable run to get to the semi-final as well.
Yeah.
So next summer's Euros are going to be a real test for just where England are on the map.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt. It's interesting. You look at that team. Like you had the likes of Trippier in it. John Stones was in it. I think. I don't think you're going to have a lot of those players that were in it before in it this time.
No, but anyway, I digress a little bit from the point. So, do we think that Rice should be that regular starter in that spot? Or do we think that he hasn't, he's had his chance. He has played a number of games for England now, and he's performed okay. I wouldn't say he's been badly, but he's not performed to the same level that he's done for West Ham for sure.
No.
Has he had his chance? Is it time for now a different partnership to be given a run?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who you would sort of partner him with. Do you have him and Henderson together?
I'm not sure. It all goes down to what system.
I think Henderson is going to be in that team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much you look at who's going to play with Henderson, and then you have like a Jack Grealish or someone sat in front, because he plays that sort of 4-2-3-1, doesn't he? So I think you've got to look at who's going to be playing with Jordan Henderson.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll be Declan Rice.
Yeah, I think Gareth Southgate's got a soft spot for Harry Winks. I know that. I don't think I think Harry Winks is arguably a bit better on the ball than Declan Rice in terms of retention of possession. But I think off the ball, I think Declan Rice is far better than Harry Winks, personally. My opinion might be biased, obviously, but anyway, I mean, we'll obviously with the England games coming up, we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about England in the coming couple of episodes. On to Antonio, talking of England. Is he unlucky not to be getting a little bit of a look in with England?
Yeah.
There's a lot of English strikers
doing very well.
Doing on the stats, they said that the most goals since the Premier League restart, and every single one was an English player.
And Antonio, I suspect, is probably at the top of that list, isn't he?
It's like him.
Yeah, it's him, Harry Kane and Sterling, I think, all on 10. And then you had Danny Ings,
Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, and Calvert-Lewin catching up very quickly, I imagine, as well. But yeah, I was thinking about this the other night because I didn't want to put this in, knowing that we were going to talk about Rice in England as well. I didn't want to put Antonio in as well because I didn't want to make this all about West Ham and how all of their players should be in the England team. But I feel like Calvert-Lewin is definitely your second striker at this moment in time. He's showing real quality to his game. He's playing in a similar sort of role for Everton that he would probably end up playing for England if he started with that sort of lone striker role. So if Harry Kane and Calvert-Lewin are your two, you still need a third. I think of all of the other strikers that we've talked about, I think Antonio is the only one who offers you something different to those two.
I was going to say, that's the thing. Antonio is a very different player to like your Calvert-Lewin, Danny Ings, or Callum Wilson.
Yeah. And there's been a number of occasions over the years where you've talked about having someone like a Peter Crouch or an Andy Carroll in the team as a plan B to go and ruffle a few feathers. And the way Antonio has made Connor Cody, Johnny Evans and Soyuncu, all three of them very good Premier League defenders, and he's made all of them look bang average in the last couple of games. Going back to the point I said earlier about, got to be careful about these players having good runs of form. But I think for Antonio, not even be in the conversation seemingly I think he's a little bit unfortunate to not even be in the conversation right now.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, I think he does give you that different option because you don't want to be chucking on the same players if that type of player isn't working during the game. So to have a different option that you can chuck in, a bit like...
It's a bit like Man United, actually.
I was literally going to say United.
Throw McTominay on for like Fernandes or something.
I was going to say Fellaini, when we used to just chuck Fellaini on at the end of the game.
I see. Yeah, of course.
Get that header with his big old afro.
So, yeah, I think he is a bit unlucky. Obviously, the front three of West Ham, obviously we spoke about them last week, performing really well. Fornals, Bowen and Antonio looking really strong. They took all of them, got on the score sheet again at the weekend, looking really good. The new signing we were talking about before, the interview that David Gold, or David Sullivan, one of them gave on TalkSport, saying about how we got all these big bids in for players and then we signed this sort of nobody for 5 million. Supposedly this is Thomas Souček, our other £16 million Czech Republic signing, has instigated this one, and he looked good on his debut.
Yeah, we were joking around that it was some sort of 5 million Czech Republic player that we'd never, and he's 28 years old, never heard of him. He's not going to do very well in the Premier League, and he did actually have a really solid game. Yeah,
and we've been crying out for a good fullback because Fredericks has been very hit and miss. Ben Johnson, the youngster, looks good, but I think it's early on in his career to kind of nail him on as a right back full time. And then if we just switch around, so if we talk about Leicester, obviously a very disappointing game. They'll be disappointed to have not really had any say in this game, to be honest. Is this just a blip in it? Do we think they've still got enough to really challenge? And
I think so. They've literally just come off the back of smashing City 5-2.
Which makes this result even more surprising.
So I think that does go to show that it is just a blip in the road. I don't think it's, you're looking at it like, they've got a bad season ahead of them.
I don't think they've got anything to worry about.
No, I think they've just, maybe they've got a bit ahead of themselves after beating City, and this is a bit of a smack in the face, like a bit of reality.
Wake up call.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have to worry too much. I think they'll still be up there fighting for it.
Okay, we'll move on then to talk about Everton against Brighton. I think they are now one of only two teams now with a 100% record in the Premier League. Calvert-Lewin scoring again. Is he going to be that sort of 20 goal a season striker that Everton need?
It's looking like it at the moment.
I hope so for them.
Yeah.
And England.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of... I mean, he's obviously been around and he was playing up front for Everton, but maybe it is just now the fact that he's got these midfielders behind him that are supplying him that he's now getting the goals that he's capable of.
I think for me at the moment, the way that when I watch him play, I think in the air, aerially, he is probably the strongest striker in the Premier League right now. The way he just seems to hang in the air for forever. I mean, the goal that he scored at the weekend against Brighton was incredible. It was almost like he was already in the air before the cross came in and was still there by the time he headed it in the net.
Yeah.
James Rodriguez again, 2 goals. Signing of the summer so far?
It reminds me of Berbatov. Just he's like a walking footballer. Like they showed how many sprints he's done. He's done the most he's done in a game is 4
sprints.
Yeah.
One game.
Man, I'm living the James Rodriguez dream.
2 games he did 0 sprints, and the other game he did 1 sprint.
That's
Crazy,
incredible, isn't
Yeah.
it? A modern day footballer not sprinting.
Yeah.
It's incredible. 20 million looks a steal. Decore looking good in that midfield as well. They were missing a couple of players, Everton as well.
Yeah, they didn't have Alan. I think they had Sigurdsson in midfield with Decore and Rodriguez.
Yeah, Richarlison's gone off injured as well. That didn't seem to phase him at all. So
No.
depth, the squad depth for Everton is beginning to really look good as well.
They've just sent that Moise Keane to PSG.
Which I think is a very good deal for everybody involved because he didn't perform at all.
It reminds me of Balotelli, that Moise Keane.
Yeah, he does. He has got a bit of that about him, hasn't he? Do we think that the Everton have obviously scored a lot of goals? They are conceding a few as well. Can they keep this up? Can they keep doing this kind of old school Brazil, we'll just score more than you?
Wow.
I think this Liverpool game is going to be very interesting.
This literally could be like a 9-7.
Yeah.
With Liverpool's defending and Everton's attacking. And also Everton's defending at times.
And the fact that
this could be a ridiculous game. It's either going to be 0-0 or it's going to be at 9-0.
Yeah, because Mane will be back. He'll have isolated, I imagine.
I mean, do they have a lot of confidence in Pickford?
I think that's probably Everton's key. Because I saw Everton looking at Romero. I mean, there's still how long's left? I don't even know.
Hour and a bit.
Hour and a half or so.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see if Everton sign a goalkeeper or not. Even for England, like Pickford's starting to look very dodgy and people are starting to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the only real sour point about this game for Everton was another mistake from Jordan Pickford. He reminds me so much of Joe Hart. Joe Hart, obviously, when he was younger and earlier on in his career, he had that same level of just sort of raw
rash decisions.
Emotion and passion, and it just led to those rash decisions, as you say. And I feel like until he can learn to kind of control his emotions, I mean, these aren't kind of difficult things he's making errors on. These aren't like ones where somebody's fired in a shot and his handling's just let him down a little bit. This one, I mean, the one at the weekend, yes, it's bounced up.
There was no pressure.
No pressure at all. All he's got to do is catch it. But even if you look at the way he jumped, it looks so frantic and so intense. It's almost like he was doing that before he was thinking about catching the ball. And then obviously it's put in. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. Do Everton sign another goalkeeper? They do have, as we discussed earlier, which was news to me, that this deadline today is not set in stone. There is a continuous...
Yeah, so for the English clubs can still buy and sell off each other up until the 16th. So there's still time.
So if Romero is going to go to Everton, there's still time.
Yeah,
I wonder... how many? I think he's all right all the while Everton are still winning games. I think he can hide behind some of these mistakes a little. If his errors start to cost them goals, especially with Everton flying at the moment, and if he start costing them points, these errors.
Well, obviously there was that mistake against Fleetwood, I think it was, and then this mistake, and the sort of reporters asked Ancelotti, are you worried? I mean, they just won 4-1, so he wasn't phased at all, but. I wonder if it'd been
4-2.
Sorry, I wonder if it'd been slightly different reaction if it had been 2-2 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether this was quoted or whether this was a bit of a piss take, but it came out and he said something along the lines of, he just needs to work on his game, basically work on his basics. And I thought that's quite, if that is him quoted as saying that, whether that was a meme that I may have seen, that's quite strong. But he's not wrong.
No. I mean, he's an international goalkeeper. You can't be making mistakes as many as he is. You expect goalkeepers to make a mistake here and there. I think Pickford is at the top of the mistakes leading to goals list.
He will be now that Kepa's not playing anymore. So yeah, I mean, with the England goalkeeping situation, with the games coming up, we've got one game against Wales, we've got 2 against Belgium. If I had to lay money, I'd say Pickford probably plays in the 2 against Belgium, and even somebody else plays against Wales, unless whoever plays against Wales, that's such a good game that they almost make themselves undroppable for the Belgium game. I suspect it will be Dean Henderson that gets the nod for the Wales game, would be my guess. Do you think if he plays more for Man United, if he was playing ahead of De Gea right now, do you think Pickford would still be number 1 for England?
I think Gary seems to...
Oh, Gary. Your first name terms, are you?
I was doing a Jose Mourinho. He just seems to have a bit like you were saying, a sort of slight favour towards Harry Winks. I think it's the same with Jordan Pickford. He just doesn't want to drop him, and I don't know why, especially with the mistakes, because it's not just for club, he's also making them on the international stage as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep an eye on that one. Let's move on then to the last game we're going to talk about. Ironically, I did want to talk about some of the other Premier League teams that we've not covered in great detail on this podcast so far, but unfortunately when results keep coming in like 7-2 and 6-1, it makes them quite difficult to ignore. So we will, though, talk about Newcastle against Burnley. Newcastle have had a pretty solid start to the season. 2 wins from 7 points. Do you think Newcastle fans will be pretty satisfied with that start?
Yeah, I think they'll be happy, especially with obviously the whole takeover not happening was a bit of a sour start to the season for them. But they made some really good signings.
Callum Wilson.
Yeah, great signing.
Big fan of Callum Wilson.
Yeah, Alan Saint-Maximin being the player that's making things happen for them.
Yeah.
Are we surprised he's still there?
I don't think so. I think he only joined last season, was it? So I think maybe if he has another great season, he'll probably move on.
Yeah.
I can't see him staying there for a 3rd season.
But a goal and assist for him. The goal was very well taken. He twisted and turned and then sort of fired it in the corner. The assist that he laid on for Wilson, though, was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
And that sort of goal, not necessarily the assist, but certainly having somebody on the end of it, sort of natural poacher, a goal scorer like Callum Wilson, is something that Newcastle are missing.
Yeah, the Joe Linton didn't do it for them.
Joe Linton would have been on the halfway line.
Yeah, they've been like you say, they've been missing someone to put it in the goal.
Yeah, I think Wilson is one of the better signings. Some of the sort of underwhelming signings. It's very easy to say this. The signing of the summer is the £70 million man that's gone to Chelsea. Was
you can't go
Havertz.
for the most expensive.
Yeah, you've got to look at what the player brings to the team. Regardless, take the money out of the equation. It's what they bring to the team.
Value for money, isn't it?
Yeah. Really? And so far, Wilson, was he 3 goals so far this season for Newcastle? So really good start for him. Talking of goalkeepers, Nick Pope had a bit of a rough day.
Awful day.
So he had 2 big errors. Do we think that the first error, which didn't lead to a goal, where he took a really heavy touch, Wilson blocked it. It went out for a goal kick after that. Do we think that having done that, do we think that mistake then leads to the one that he then makes again later?
I think so. Sometimes it's just a bit of a knock on confidence, isn't it? Yeah.
But you would think, part of me thinks it should have made him kick into gear and be like, right, come on.
I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. But then obviously it might have just made him knock his confidence.
For me, it was weird though, because the conditions were so bad over the weekend.
Horrendous.
It wasn't like he had an hour on the ball. The pass back to him was in quite a condensed area of the pitch with players around him. So it made me surprised that he didn't just put his foot, even if it goes out for a throw-in, only sort of 15, 20 yards up the pitch. Just put your foot for it. Don't fart around with it.
But I think that's the problem. Players nowadays are it's ingrained into them to play out from the back, and I think they just forget that sort of old school.
Just get rid of it.
Yeah, clear it.
Yeah. As far as Burnley go, they are struggling at the moment. Not 0 points from 3 games. They haven't had the easiest of start, but then I wouldn't say it was that tough on paper either. They had Leicester, Southampton, now Newcastle. I think Sean Dyche will be pretty worried that he hasn't got something from those games.
Yeah, I mean, Burnley in last season, Burnley and Sheffield, you'd put all their defenders into your fantasy teams because they would just have the strongest defences. But they both seem to be shipping goals and not scoring many at the other end at the moment.
Yeah, and they've not really brought anybody in. I actually had to go digging because I thought to myself, who have they actually brought in? And I couldn't think who they brought in. So I had to go digging, and the only one I can see is Dale Stevens from Brighton. Tarkowski doesn't look like he's going to be leaving, but obviously there was plenty of rumours around West Ham and Leicester being interested. Dyche obviously does have a good habit putting together sides that grind out results. But I wonder, with all the goals we're seeing scored at the moment, with this crazy Premier League that's currently going on, do we think that teams like Sheffield United and Burnley, who historically have always built solid from the back, nicked 1 or 2 goals here and there to win 1-0 or 2-1 or something like that, do we think the teams are struggling this season because of the fact that so many goals are just being, and everyone's being so attacking?
Yeah, it could be the case.
I mean, Sheffield United have only conceded a few goals, but they're not scoring any. Brighton are struggling for the same reason. They are still scoring a few goals, but conceding way too many. So yeah, I think these teams need the Premier League to kind of go back to how it used to be.
Yeah, those two definitely. Because Sheffield United only scored 1 goal, I believe, and that was the
against
weekend. Arsenal. Yeah, so
it's a good goal in fairness from Goldrick.
It was, yeah.
So yeah, it's. They need to get points on the board soon. It's not the end of the world.
Wolves still a long way to go as well.
Wolves only just got their first points at the weekend, and we spoke last week about what happened to them last season and how long it took for them to get points on the board, and then they still went on to have a very good season. So they won't be massively concerned, but I think Sean Dyche, Chris Wilder will be very eager to get points on the board. So, right, Dan, let's go back to your stat and the answer. I think most people will probably know the answer to this one.
So do you want me to read it out again?
Go for it.
So Jack Grealish bagged himself 2 goals and 3 assists against Liverpool yesterday. He becomes only the second Aston Villa player to get 3 assists in a single Premier League game. The first player to do so did it against Burnley in February 2010. But Chris, who was that player?
James Milner.
Yeah. Would you have known that if I hadn't said he still plays in the
If I had a bit longer to think about it, maybe. But yeah, I think as soon as you said that,
yeah, I thought it might be a bit hard to think back to 2010 for Aston Villa.
Based on our recent quizzes where we can't think back 2 years. Right, speaking of quizzes, it's time for this. I think this is going to become so synonymous with this show.
I hope so. So, welcome back to Football with Fran. Today, the quiz.
This is a big round for me.
It is.
2-0 down.
Yeah. Oh, God. I forgot about that. Right, so today, I would like you to, we'll see how it goes, to tell me the top 10 most expensive transfers.
What, of all time?
Of all time.
Ooh.
If you want to tell me a rough estimate of how much you think the fee was, go for it. But anyone in the top 11.
Okay.
Top 11. Most expensive.
Right, I went first last week, Dan, so off you go. How many guesses are we getting each? What, 5 each or something?
Yeah.
Do penalty style.
Okay. Pogba is one of them.
Yeah.
Neymar.
Yeah.
Coutinho.
Yeah.
Suarez. Fuck.
No.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Is that a no?
No.
Oh man.
No, sorry.
Okay.
Gareth Bale.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Chris, come on.
Okay. Who else has gone for big money? Harry Maguire. He's got 80 million. That's not high enough, is it?
It's not
That's
high
not
enough.
high enough.
He just for,
I am shit at this game.
just for reference, Harry Maguire's 13th.
Oh.
So he wasn't that
So
far
you were
out.
kind of
Cristiano Ronaldo.
yes.
How on earth have I not got that one?
on the cusp, he's 11th.
Oh, he's not in it.
No, I did say 11. I changed it from 10 to 11.
Oh, okay.
Just because there's
I
three.
can see how it is. Okay.
You can take that one off.
But I can, Chris. You know what?
Take
I'm
that
going to
one
take it off.
Oh,
Take it off.
Because
champion.
I'm kind.
It's not helping me because I still can't think of anybody else.
Think.
I'm going to go for.
Oh, I know one.
There's got to be a China deal in there somewhere, isn't there? Although they were just big on wages rather than transfer fees, weren't they?
I would vote against that if I'm honest, Chris.
Oh, all right.
China.
He went to China for big monies.
No, as in no.
Oh, as in don't. Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
Oh, we're both like.
I would vote against that.
Who else? Big money players.
5, 4.
Yeah, go on. Go back to Dan. I need to keep
Eden
thinking.
Hazard.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake. I think that's me done. If we're 5 guesses each, that's 3-1.
Okay, well, we'll extend it. Come on, Chris. Come on, Chris.
I was really expecting a West Ham quiz this week. It's the pressure, man. It's on the spot.
Yeah.
Just breathe. Breathe through it.
Fernando Torres. No, that was only 50 minutes.
No.
Way too
long
low.
ago.
Okay,
That's way too low.
Okay, Chris, I'm going to give you one more guess. And then...
Literally silver spoon feeding me here.
Yeah.
Why am I so shit at these?
Just so you all know, visually, Chris is sweating. He's worried.
I wonder if I can mute the microphone so that you can't hear me typing on my keyboard.
What's the lowest transfer fee
What?
that we're looking for transfer fees above? Such
Well,
and
so
such?
Cristiano Ronaldo was like
90,
the cusp,
wasn't it?
and his fee was 80.
Okay, I think I know another.
So he was 80 then. So,
And he was 2009.
trying to think if there because I feel like there's not been too many other Premier League
There's a couple.
signings of that nature. That a lot of them will be European destinations.
Think Barcelona,
Oh, I know another one.
PSG.
I know another one.
No, I'm not sure I've got any left. I'm not sure I've got any in me.
Can I do
Okay,
my other one?
yes,
Go on
Dan.
Kylian Mbappe from Monaco to PSG.
Yeah, second.
I
So,
feel like I may have to swap seats with Fran. That wasn't even close. That was an absolute battering.
I actually stopped counting, but I'm pretty sure Dan got
Yeah.
5 and Chris got 1. So
That's my
overall,
poorest showing so far.
3-0 to
I
Dan.
think you're going to have to do a West Ham one next week just to get
Just
Chris
imagine
back
if I
in.
lose it though.
Well, I'll try and find a West Ham one. But for anyone that's interested, so we've got obviously Cristiano Ronaldo was 11th, and then we've got Gareth Bale, and then we have got Eden Hazard, Paul Pogba. Can't pronounce the first name, but Dembele, Usman,
Oh, it was Mane Dembele, yeah.
Griezmann. Who's
That was quite recent, yeah.
João Felix.
João Felix.
Okay, yeah. So he's quite a lot of these are very recent, aren't they?
And then Philippe Coutinho, Mbappe, and Neymar.
Well, that was shit.
You got Neymar, the top one.
Yeah, that was my line in the sand. Neymar. Not interested in Europe, Dan. I just do the Premier League.
Well, you know what? If we just needed the most expensive, you got number one.
Right, exactly. I got the number 1.
If anything, that counts as 2 points.
It's still lost.
Still lost. Oh dear. Right. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. As I said, we are going to have a second episode that's going to come out later this week. But for now, don't forget to follow us on all our socials. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes if you can. I don't think there's anything else left to say.
Thanks for listening.
We are out of here.
Salam.
Bye.